If you're like me, you're probably looking for that perfect little camera that you can just pick up, throw it inside your pocket, and shoot footage that doesn't scream, hey, I shot this on a GoPro. Don't get me wrong, GoPros are good for what they do, but sometimes you just want something that's a bit more cinematic, more polished, and portable, if you will. And yes, I use the word cinematic, but yeah. And that's where the DJI Pocket 3 comes in. It's small, easy to use, straight out of the box, and it gives you videos that look surprisingly good. But here's the thing, I don't think it really shines until you start setting it up the right way, and also adding a couple key accessories to this. So in this video, I want to walk you through exactly how I set up my DJI Pocket 3 for what I shoot. Now I'll start with the very simple beginner setup that anyone can copy. Then I'll move into a more advanced setting for people who want to get that more cinematic look. And finally, I'll show you guys a couple accessories that further enhances that cinematic look. So let's say you just got the Pocket 3 and you don't want to take the time to go dive into the menus and all the manual modes yet. And that is totally fine. You can still get really good footage after tweaking these couple settings that I'm about to show you. First, you want to set your ISO between like 50 to 100, and for me, usually if you're going in and out of like buildings and places, from dark places to brighter places, and you know you'll be using the camera for that, then I'll usually set it to 50 to 800. And the reason for that is because when you have like lower ISO settings, you generally get a cleaner image and less unnecessary noise and grain. Second, you want to adjust your exposure composition to -0.3. It's just a little tweak, but this is going to save your highlights from blowing out, especially the skies. And that's because whenever you record footage and there's something blown out, just like overexposed, there's no way to bring the information back. It's always a better idea to expose for the highlight, which often means dialing down the exposure composition or just underexpose a little bit. Third, if you can, definitely set your white balance like manually instead of like just leaving it on auto. But honestly, if you want to leave it on auto, it's perfectly fine too. But here's a little trick that you can do before you start recording is to leave on auto and see which white balance it gives you, and then you can go back to manual and then just match that white balance. This way, whenever you're moving around, the color is not gonna shift like everywhere. Although it's totally fine if you just want to keep it auto and just let the camera do the job. It's not the end of the world, and it does save time because you don't have to, go in manually and adjust the white balance yourself. Now let's come back to the menu and dig inside the color profiles, because there's a couple that you can choose from. And if you don't want to mess around with like post-process and just editing all that stuff, I'll just stick with like normal 10-bit. This is gonna look straight out of the camera and it's easy to edit. You really don't have to think too much about it. Keep everything simple, easy, and nice, good looking. And that's it for the beginner setup. With these settings, it's gonna give you like a cleaner shot, more consistent between your different footage, and honestly just a bit more professional without having to tweak a whole lot in the setting. Alright, let's step it up. If you want that true cinematic look, you will have to shoot in manual mode and follow the 180-degree shutter rule. That means your shutter speed should be double of your frame rate. So if you want to shoot at 24 frames per second, then you'll want your shutter speed to be around 50th of a second. And if you want to shoot at 60 frames per second, then you'll want your shutter speed at 1/20th of a second. The problem is when you lock in your shutter speed and the ISO is low and you're shooting under like a bright sunny day, your footage is most likely going to be way too bright and overexposed. And that's where ND filter comes in. ND filter means neutral density filter. It's kind of like sunglasses for your camera. So this way you can expose your footage correctly. I've been using the one from like just DJI itself, but ironically, whenever you slap these filters on there, they don't really close. Like, it doesn't retract back to its original state. And I can live with that. But I'm pretty sure there's like other third-party companies that makes ND filters for the Pocket 3 where it's thin enough and it retracts back to the original state like it's supposed to do, like so. I believe K and F, because I use their mist filter and they can go back to like the original state when you retract your gimbal. However, since I had the DJI version, I've been just using them and they are perfectly fine. But if you want to save some money and at the same time have like a ND filter that can, you know, retract back to itself, then maybe check out the K&F Concept ND filter for Pocket 3, which I'll leave links down below. And no, they're not sponsoring this video, or they are not providing me with any tools whatsoever. But basically what you want to do is whenever you're shooting outdoor or whenever your footage is overexposed, you want to slap on like an ND filter. It could be an ND 16 or 32, and then your footage is going to look perfect. This way you won't get those blown out footage, and at the same time it's going to look clean, nice and smooth. Also, if you're shooting at 24 frames per second with the right shutter speed, you should be able to get those like movie-like movement, like motion blur. Now, if you want a bit more control in your footage, then I'll suggest you to shooting D-Log-M. This is basically DJI's flat color profile, which means it'll give you more dynamic range. So the shadows in your footage is not gonna be like super crushed, and the highlight is not going to be clipped all the time. You basically have more flexibility when you're grading the footage. Now there's also HLG setting that you can choose from, but honestly I'll just stick with the D-Log-M unless you're doing like HDR videos, which most people don't need. So for me, I'm mostly shooting D-Log-M. This way I'll still have like good dynamic range that I can work with in post. And again, if you think all of these is like a bit more hassle, you don't want to get into it, that's perfectly fine too. You'll still be able to get some really good looking footage using the beginner setting that I just mentioned. That's where this camera shines, because it's so easy and intuitive to use. Now, besides the ND filter that makes your footage looks a whole lot better, I feel like this is where things gets fun, because essentially you can like use magnet and attach different accessories, obviously different lenses too. So here's a set of lenses that I got from Freewell. Again, not sponsored, and they did not provide me with any of these. They have these like macro lenses which are super fun to use, and it's actually a bit addicting because you can get really close to your subject, whereas all of the background is going to be super blurred because of the lens, since it will be shooting at f2. And with the macro lens, it further enhances that feel by separating the subject and the background. And then there's this wide angle lens that you can attach to the DJI Pocket 3. Now, I believe you have the creator combo. It also comes with the wide angle lens itself, and personally I like the one from DJI better compared to the one from Freewell, because the magnet is a lot more stronger compared to Freewell. So definitely keep that in mind when you're getting third-party attachments to your Pocket 3. And with this one, with this external lens, it gives your footage like a very wide point of view, to the point where it's like 15mm. And this is perfect for vlogging in tight spaces, maybe like in an airplane, or maybe you just want to show the environment, like where you're at. 15mm is definitely the one to go with, especially want that kind of feel. And it's quite fun to play around with. So if you have time and you want to check it out, I'll leave the link down below as well. Now, of course, no camera is perfect. The DJI Pocket 3 is no exception. Like, the screen is small, it's tiny. Whenever you're recording yourself, it's hard to see. And obviously having a built-in screen is better than not having one. And then the gimbal head is not exactly strong, so definitely be careful whenever you're tossing this inside your bag or your pocket. Just make sure that you don't snap its head off. The battery life, it's good, it's decent. I feel like I can vlog the whole day with this, but like having an extra like battery extension like this, it definitely comes in handy, unless you want to like have like a power bank and charge your camera on the day off without using the power bank, then that's definitely fine. The camera is also not a low light monster. I feel like maybe have the ISO set between like 50 to 800. That's a good spot if you're coming in and out of like places where you know the lighting is gonna shift a lot. You can definitely shoot at night, but don't expect this camera to perform like your full frame camera. And even with all these accessories that I mentioned, still know that this is a tiny camera. It's not gonna replace any of your big cameras. So just know what you're getting into. But for daytime shooting, like when you're traveling and you just want to grab a couple quick cinematic shots, it's really hard to beat the size to performance ratio. At the end of the day, this camera is not there to replace your main camera. It's about having something small that you can carry every day, but still capable enough to give you footage that you're proud of. And with the right settings and a couple of these ND accessories, the DJI Pocket 3 can just go from a little cool gadget that you can bring everywhere to this pocket-sized cinema tool.